nodding, so let's just start then. Okay then. Now, good afternoon to all of you present there, early career scientists, everybody, welcome to this session. My name is Elaine Vaughan, and it's a pleasure here to be chairing the session, Onward and Upward as an early career scientist on behalf of ILSI. I myself am from a member company of ILSI called Sensus, based in the Netherlands. And the actual aim of this roundtable is to exchange and have some discussion on what skills and competencies, for example, that industry, our public institutes, our academic institutes might be looking for in a scientist. And we're hoping that this can help you to, maybe consider your career or to prepare, for example, for your next career move. And of course, you're very welcome to use this opportunity to ask whatever questions are coming into your head on this subject. So first, very briefly, some housekeeping aspects. The session will be recorded. What we have is a system on your right-hand side where there is a conversation chat, and also there you'll see the balloon with the question mark, so you can put your questions in there, and we will pick them up. And by the way, feel free to just ask the questions and engage. We're also very happy to give you the microphone and let you ask your questions, or if you really feel something there's in your heart that you would actually like to comment on, we would also be very happy to hear that. Okay, this slide is here just to give us all a reminder that there are handouts available of all the sessions of ILSI over the day, and thereby you can find them underneath the button there under files. So that's just very convenient to actually know that they're present all there. Okay, thank you. Okay, so as I mentioned, my name is Elaine Vaughan, and what I especially like about my job is, the idea to support human health with fibers and good food. So I really enjoy the whole food application scene. I feel it's sort of central to humans and animals. And I also really enjoy the sort of diversity of expertise that I have to use in my role in health science, and then also combining that with regulatory affairs. So that was just a short overview of myself. And now we're going to go further with Renaud. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Renaud Mestdagh. I'm based in Belgium. I work for Cargill, and I'm based in the European Research Center, north of Brussels, so based in Vilvoorde. What I really like in my daily job, and what I really love about being part of this center, is really the diversity of backgrounds, of profiles, and of skills from people that I'm working with. I really enjoy as well having short-term, couple of weeks, couple of days, and long-term tasks when we talk about 5 or 10 years plan, and to be in contact with customers, and really this customer-oriented type of R&D activity is something that I really enjoy to do.
Thank you, Renaud. And so I believe the next one will be for Nynke Kramer.
Yeah, so thank you for giving the word. So I'm an associate professor in toxicology at Wageningen University. I just started, in fact, on the 1st of September, and before that I was associated with Utrecht University. Both of these jobs are academic jobs, and what I personally really like about academia is the constant challenge. So we're always at the forefront of doing of new research, of new research ideas, and associated with that is it's the independence that we get. So yes, it's challenging, but we also have a lot of our own input, and that's what I love about my job.
Thank you very much, Nynke. And the next person up is Professor Mathieu Vinken.
Hi, everyone. So like Nynke, I'm also an academic person, so to say. So I'm a full professor of toxicology and also pharmaceutical sciences at the Vrije Universiteit Brussels, so Dutch-speaking indeed, Flemish, the Free University of Brussels. So what I do like in my job, basically the same what Nynke already mentioned, but also in particular the flexibility and the variation. I mean, one day is never, like the other day, so to say. And that's basically because of the freedom we got in terms of what we are allowed to investigate. I also, deliberately perform my actions or my professional activities at a free university. You might know that the driving principle of our university, of the VUB, is free inquiry. So which means that our research is not being driven by a dogma or religion or something. So that's why I, really decided to work on this particular university.
Okay, thank you very much, Mathieu. And the next person to introduce themselves is Sandra. And you have to look very carefully at Sandra's picture because it doesn't come up in the video, but here you can see Sandra.
Okay, thank you, Elaine. I'm working as a scientist and team leader at the European Commission Joint Research Center. And since a few years, since 2013, I'm also coordinating the European network of 35 validation laboratories in the EU member states. It's called EU NetVal. These are the labs that helping us to get these new approach methods that we have been seeing in the previous session as soon as possible, for decision making. We're tried to change a little bit the business model then to get more speed and efficiency in the validation process. So it's really nice that I'm here with Mathieu Vinken because I'm coming also from the Free University from Brussels in my, let's say, initial education. And basically what we have been already learning there in the beginning of our education is, doing things together, you get stronger. So what I love also in my current job is the stronger together, working in the European Commission. Obviously, we are working with a lot of stakeholders and partners. But moreover, I talked about education. I think you always learn, yeah. So it's also about growing together in research and innovation development and applied use, and growing together also with the broad stakeholder network. What also I love is the quality of research and innovation science, because with quality you get trust towards stakeholders and policymakers. And then obviously the people's ecosystem.
That's such a good point, Sandra. Indeed, we are really always learning. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you for the next slide. So now basically where each of the panelists is going to go through their career path rather top line. And I think this can be quite inspiring, just so you can see how these processes can go for people regardless of the different career directions that they actually take. Renaud.
Yeah, sure. So I'm happy to kick this off. So I'm French. So I grew up in the southwest of France. So I graduated from the University of Toulouse. I have a background in biochemistry applied to nutrition science. And I had the chance as well at that time to be in contact with Nestlé. So I spent a couple of months doing my master's in Switzerland. They offered me the opportunity to fund my PhD at Imperial College in London. So really early in my career, I would say I've been in very close contact with industry, being Nestlé at that time. I really enjoyed as well this connection between academia and industry, benefiting as well from both supervisors with, of course, very different approaches in terms of publication and how to translate your research into concrete things for an industry. So really love that part, really love the time in London as well, being part of a huge ecosystem with more than 50 PhD students and I would say a challenging environment as well there. I graduated in 2012 and I decided to move back to France, not because I was missing France, but because I had the opportunity to join a rather small dairy company near Paris. I started as a junior project manager and then got promoted into R&D scientist and project management. Working for B2C, so really the business to consumers, and the B2B, business to business, so supplying ingredients. I spent almost 7 years doing that in France, and 3 years ago moved to Belgium to join Cargill. And I'm still representing Cargill today, so I'm senior scientist scientists dedicated to what we call specialized nutrition, being from early life to elderly people, so really taking the needs of different population into consideration. And Cargill, as you might know or might not know, it's a huge company, but the activities that we have in Europe are dedicated to B2B, so business to business. And really, my role there is to support any type of R&D activities in nutrition for very different businesses that we have. Can be on oils and fats, can be on carbs, can be on sweeteners, proteins, or even biotics, such as prebiotics, probiotics, or postbiotics. For me.
Thank you so much, Renaud. And now we're going to go in the academic direction, I think, with Nynke.
Yes, as you can see, so unlike Renaud, I've only got the caps on here, so I've never left university, unfortunately. Well, for someone's like, although I really like my job. I did also have a stint in the UK, like Renaud, but I did my master's at the University of Oxford in environmental sciences then, and I moved on to Utrecht University to do my PhD in toxicology. And that's the topic has really gripped me. So I stayed on to do a postdoc and then followed up to do an assistant professorship. And then was recruited just a couple of months back to go to Wageningen University, admittedly still in the same field and same type of research. So it's a much more linear line than what would be standard. But I do like what I did.
Thank you very much, Nynke. I think it's very inspiring to see women in the academic setting and that will increase. Mathieu, I think you are next up.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I was born actually in let's say the western part of the country, so near the city of Bruges. And at that time when I was finishing secondary school, that was back in '96. So it was considered a bit inappropriate that I would go to the Free University of Brussels. So they wanted us to go to the University of Ghent, or especially Leuven, because that is a Catholic university. But anyhow, I was a bit stubborn, so I went to the VUB, the Free University of Brussels. And I know for sure already at that time that I wanted to do, something in the scientific field. So I decided to start up, like education as a pharmacist. Which is very broad, I have to say. Well, it's pharmaceutical oriented, of course, but it has a very, very broad scientific, let's say, basis. Now, it's a 5 years education, and already after the second or even after the first year, it was clear for me that I was not, planning to spend my life in a public pharmacy. But still, I mean, again, I thought that this was a very good, let's say, basic formation or education to gain quite some scientific background. So I knew already, let's say after the first or the second year, that I wanted to step into a PhD project. So I was very motivated, of course, at that time. And I was given the opportunity after 5 years to step into the specific field of toxicology, more specifically in vitro toxicology, so animal-free, which still is a very, very relevant topic from different perspectives, of course. So like Nynke, well, I mainly stayed at my own university at that time, which if I could turn back time, maybe I would have changed, because it's very important to also gain very early on in your career some international experience. And I will be coming back to this probably when I will be talking about the 3 I's. So not the 3 R's, that's something different, but the 3 I's further on today. And then, yeah, then of course you start to also set up your own private life, and then it becomes more and more difficult to move, of course, abroad. And I was offered a very nice position as professor at the university where I did my PhD already 10 years ago. So I built basically my career there, which was mainly in the field still of in vitro toxicology, but at the same time, being a pharmacist, I'm also still very much interested in looking for new targets for the treatment of liver disease. But let's say the common thing between the toxicology research track and let's say the more pharmacology research track is the liver. That's my favorite organ, so to say. So it's fully focused on this. Now, about 8 years ago, I was invited to give a talk in the university in Sao Paulo in Brazil. And at that time, the situation was much better in Brazil. So there was a lot of money for research, and also economically and politically, the situation was much better. And before I knew, I was basically given the opportunity to also be visiting professor there. And it went so fast. So before I knew, I signed a contract, and I spent several months in Brazil. I had my own team there, and at the same time, I was also establishing my own team at the VUB, which really a challenge to really establish 2 different teams at 2 different continents. So this is still going on. We are still expanding, both in Brussels, but unfortunately in Brazil, of course, not only with COVID, but you know that the political situation is not so favorable. So this is still ongoing, but I haven't been there for 2 years. But as soon as COVID and the political situation allows, we will, try to reignite, of course, the research in Brazil. And it's a very nice situation also for the PhD and the postdocs in the teams, because we do have like a lot of exchange visits, and of course they like it a lot to spend time in Brazil. There are worse places in the world, of course, to do research, as you probably can imagine. So that's my career path in a nutshell.
Now, that sounds really wonderful, and I'm sure it will improve in Brazil, and you will have an opportunity to become strong there again for Brazil and also for the students there. That would be really great. Okay, then I think, Sandra, you're next up.
Okay, there is the slide. So as I said before already, I joined, let's say, I don't know if we are rebels, but anyway, Mathieu, I joined also then the Free University in Brussels from my own town in Willebroek. I mean, for those that don't know, Willebroek in Belgium, you know, it's the place where it's very close where they make the best beer of the world, if I can say, Duvel beer. And that's where I come. It's not so far from Brussels, so that was a very good choice to go there. I basically started with a degree in chemical and agriculture engineering, but in that time it was not a classical one. We started with the biotechnology track, so I could say I have more a STEM degree, because we were together in several of the courses with the civil engineering track at the university. So that was quite interesting. And I got very fascinated, obviously, about biotechnology. And my faculty was engineering, but I started to hear about an interesting faculty near the medical campus, which is not where is the VAB, but it was in Jette. So, and there was this Professor Rogier, which Mathieu knows very well, and she started a track on, let's say, tissue engineering and biotechnology. She was also working with wound healing center when people were very much burned, you know, and they needed obviously to have therapy. And she started with skin tissue engineering, but also with human liver cells. And that was actually when I started to work on a PhD in the field of using human liver cells. And Vera Rogiers in that time was very good in getting already European projects. And thanks to that, she was able to send me as part of my PhD to University College in London to do there, together with the clinic in the University of College of London, work on a very interesting enzyme in the liver, which was called flavin-containing monooxygenase. It's a biotransformation enzyme in the liver. And the patients that were there, they had some polymorphism, and they were suffering from the fish odor syndrome. And this is a social, very difficult syndrome. So, I mean, I got already some links with, you know, European projects. And as I said, you know, growing together, but growing with different scientists together was something really nice with these European projects. After the PhD, I got also through Vera, I think, an opportunity to know that a pharmaceutical company in Belgium was looking for, let's say, some skills in this cell and tissue culturing for setting up a new lab in their company on in vitro toxicology. So there I started at Janssen Pharmaceutica in the lab on skin and eye irritation to check, let's say, chemical entities and work very closely with those that were doing the conventional skin and eye testing. Obviously, liver toxicology, metabolism was also the group at Janssen where I was much in contact. And that was also, let's say, when I got to hear via an ad in an engineer magazine in Belgium of a position in Italy. And I went there to check. And basically, that's when I started a few years later in 1996 to work at ECVAM, which was the European Center for the Validation of Alternative Methods. And this is where I still am. And obviously the European philosophy of, let's say, the growing together, the stronger together, working together globally and thinking together is something really very important in the work. You know, I think we're all doing in this panel, and because we're all working somewhere together, I think.
Thank you very much, Sandra. That's indeed, yeah, fascinating career moves actually in, yeah, from academic and also industry, yeah, and also sort of, yeah, governmental associations. Okay, so then I will move very briefly to my own career path. So I did my basic degrees in a University College Cork in Ireland. And there I really developed expertise, especially in the dairy microbiology field, molecular microbiology, and also I studied nutrition there. And that combination actually would become very useful actually with the current sort of revolution in the microbiome and the impact on health. Which was, yeah, so nicely discussed this morning actually by Felice Jacka, Professor Jacka. That was really an amazing lecture, I have to say. And so after my PhD in Cork, I moved to NIZO, which was at that time a dairy cooperative in the Netherlands. And I was, yeah, quite attracted by the Netherlands because I felt there was very good collaboration there between all the universities and the various associations. And I had a Marie Curie grant to go there for over 2 years from the European Community, which I wrote. And yeah, from there I went to Nestlé, where I was an R&D scientist in the research center in Lausanne. So I went from the very low country up to a very, very high country because that we were situated at a very high level over there with the R&D center. And there I really grew more into especially the probiotic field and also starting on the prebiotic field and also genomics of microbiomes, lactic acid bacteria. But I wanted to return to the Netherlands for personal reasons. And so then I went to Wageningen University, where I worked in the molecular ecology group. And there we really worked and expanded all on the whole techniques to study the microbiome, the human microbiome or the animal microbiome. And that's a really revolutionary field at the moment. And I, of course, still was wanting to go a bit more the industry direction. That's where my pull was. And via the top institution, Food and Nutrition, I came into contact with some people in Unilever. And actually, then I went to Unilever and spent many years there, a little bit double for a while. So part-time at Wageningen, minding PhD students, and then also at Unilever, where we really were introducing prebiotics into foods and bringing them onto the market. So also very exciting. And then I was really keen to, yeah, stay in the whole field of food and health. But also to expand a bit more because I was also very interested in how regulation, for example, also impacts the food world. And then there was a very nice opportunity at Sensus, which is a small company, but in a very, quite a large cooperative called Royal Coecke in the Netherlands. And there I had the opportunity to really combine those two aspects of my work. So on the one hand, it's really investigating the impact of fibers, prebiotics, inulin on human health and other health ingredients. But on the other hand, looking at what is the impact of regulation on this particular area. So I think that essentially covers the career paths of all the panelists. And I think maybe a next good step might be to consider we do have various some polling questions. So maybe it might be a good idea to put up, some of the, thank you very much. Okay. So we're going to start some discussion and these polls basically will support us in that. So what I would like you to fill in was how long was it since you obtained your highest degree? And you have to click on the box and click on, okay, I'm still on my way to obtaining my degree. Oh, it's been 0 to 5 years, or it's been 5 to 10 years, or it's been even more than 10 years since I have done my highest degree. So the highest degree could be a Bachelor of Science, for example. Another person in academia might maybe have been more inclined to a PhD. And then you mustn't forget afterwards that you have to press the green submit button down at the bottom. So that's actually very important. Okay, so I think that we have more or less everybody has clicked that now. So this is essentially how the system works, and you can see, yeah, for many people they are well on their way with their career. But still there's people here in the middle, for example, who could still change or go many different directions. So feel free, any of the panelists, to comment on this. There's many ways, of course, to have a scientific career. And I'm sure that there's probably scientific careers, yeah, with all sorts of different levels of actually of degrees. Okay.
Maybe to comment on this, Elaine?
Thank you, Sandra.
You know, thinking back and, you know, listening to each other, I think there is no, you know, right or wrong way for a career path. You know, things, obviously you can be thinking what you, let's say, what you like to do, but I think the most important thing in your career path, you know, like I did, let's say, maybe by accident or something, some things happened, but it's very important, whatever you do, yeah, that you continue to do it, you know, with the same enthusiasm and passion, but a lot you have control on that, yeah. So, and this is something I think, I don't know what the other panelists say, you know, I think work as a scientist, because I think we all consider us, we have seen that as scientists, you know, it's not a very easy, obviously, track, and there are some stumble blocks that start with a PhD maybe. But the most important thing is, I think, to really keep going, yeah, and especially look for collaborations and partnerships. This, I think, is extremely powerful also when you look at early career scientists, to find your mentors, to find the people to talk, and also maybe to learn that this is not a way for you. So I think that is maybe something when I see this, you know, this outcome, you know. Yeah.
Yes, and I think also the role of you know, mentors, our teachers, our lecturers, also, for example, in encouraging you along your career path is also worth a mention. Sometimes certain persons can have quite an influence on you, something they say, whether, for example, you decide you know, to consider a master's, or to consider, you know, I would like now really to find a job, for example, within a company. So I think things people say and the influence of mentors also can play quite a role actually in some career paths, and I think it can be very, very useful. Therefore, to hear.
I can only echo that. I think it's really important. Also, being a supervisor myself now, I think it's next to the research, of course. I think it's also my responsibility to help shape the career of the you know, of the researchers in my team. And you really need to listen to them, because of course you have your own plan and you have your own vision on how you want to build your team and who should be doing what. But of course they have their own ambition, especially the postdoctoral researchers. That's really important. But what I have seen changing, especially over the past 10 years or 15 years or so, is, you know, let's say the well, we can call them the hallmarks, if you will, in the CV of an academic researcher. When I was doing my own PhD, well, it was very important to have your 2 publications, and that was about it. But now it has become so more, well, many things have become so more important. And this is when I alluded to the 3 I's. I mean, Of course, collaboration is very important. This is what Sandra already alluded to, but in a very broad context. So it's about interdisciplinary collaboration. So sticking to your own, in my case, toxicology field, well, it won't do. You will have to really collaborate with people from different disciplines. But I think this is something very general in the scientific field. Also, as I mentioned, secondly, international. And this is where sometimes you have to push people to go abroad also, not only because it's really needed for, you know, the research, let's say, as such, but also it helps to mature a researcher. Going abroad and gaining some experience, that really, really important. Yeah. And then the third aspect is certainly also intersectoral collaboration. So again, you know, being an academic, you do have the tendency to just have your own, a bit of naive academic kind of view on things. But it's more than that, especially if you work in the field of animal-free toxicology, these kind of things. You really need to talk with people from other sectors, regulators, you know, companies. And this is really changing these days. And especially over the past few years, this has been changing a lot. So I think this is something that you should keep in mind. And as a young researcher, these are the things you need to prioritize. So to be visible and to gain a broad set of skills. So not only research skills, but also interpersonal skills.
That sounds really good advice, Mathieu. And there is a question actually that has come in here. Industry often values soft skills such as communication or business-related skills and transdisciplinary skills. This person is interested, how do the speakers ensure to get or improve these skills? And how do they promote them in their current positions?
May I comment on this? So first of all, I think soft skill is really a wrong wording. It sounds a bit negative. Let's call them transferable skills, or I mean, that's much better. But this becomes more and more important. In the academic field, we also have seen this popping up in, you know, let's say, the formation that the doctoral researchers get from the university. So it's not only focused on the actual the core research skills, but also there are many courses being organized on how to write a paper, how to give a presentation, these kind of things. So we really encourage our researchers, also postdoctoral level, by the way, to engage and to take part in this. In addition to this, there are many organizations that organize these kind of transferable skill training. There is in the toxicology field, there are many of these organizations. Also in European projects, I'm coordinating a project myself. We try to also focus on this. So we do give opportunity to the young researchers to present their results, which helps to develop their skills. So this is really, really important. I would say equally important as the actual research skills.
Yeah, I'd just like to second that if I just could.
Maybe
because Jonas, you mentioned that it's an industry, but I would argue also in academia, soft skills and transferable skills are in fact are becoming very important. So it's not just the publication lists that Mathieu mentioned that I could argue was more the case, you know, a decade or two ago. But also in my own group, and I feel that we're actually being judged on our skills to network, our skills to get projects in, the finance aspects of the communication is almost an equally big part. So it's not just industry that's asking for these skills now. It's much broader.
Maybe
to comment on the industry side, I think what is important to mention is that when you join an industry, you join with, I would say, a set of skills. Those skills, you will have the opportunity to develop them. And that's really up to you to discuss with your manager, with your supervisor, and to seek as well sometimes for trainings or external trainings that can help develop that. But you definitely get the opportunity to do that. And even I mentioned Mathieu before, when we talk about mentor and mentee, that's definitely the type of programs that I'm seeing more and more within an industry, because they are starting to realize as well that maybe you don't have supervisor like we might have in the academy, in academic, but definitely this is needed to grow in a company, to have someone that can explain different paths, that can help you as well to make a specific choice at some stage. And this is not necessarily always your manager that can help us.
Yeah, Elaine, if I may, I would
Sandra, yeah.
Something maybe building up on what the previous speakers and also Renaud now just said. I think with regard to transferable skill set, or let's say your toolbox of skills, indeed, it's very important to have many. And the mentoring is extremely important, that you have some people that can, give you reflections, different ones, but even more important. And I think I just want to thank, let's say, my leaders that I encountered very early in the career, which was my first professor at the university, Vera Rogiers, but also my unit head in the company. What you also need to really have all your career is that you get empowerment from those that are leading you to to really do all these things, so that you can grow. That you can grow in your career and can have these skills. So Professor Rogiers, and Mathieu knows that, we were as green as grass, but instead that she did her presentation, she let us do her presentation. And if you have that, obviously, you develop a skill set. So it is not only the trainings that you follow, but to really go there in the wild and are allowed, to speak and also to make mistakes, and to learn. And that is very important, that those that are supervising early people, give them the space to grow. Yeah, that's very important.
Very, very good point, Sandra. Indeed, basically while you're doing, you are learning, and of course, indeed, it's very helpful when supervisors give you the space to do that. It seems there's also some interest about PhD necessity. And out of curiosity, we did prepare a poll about that. Is a PhD a prerequisite for a career in any of these areas, for example, in academia or in industry or in regulatory agencies? Perhaps you could fill this in. I don't know if it's possible to do more than once. And then you have to...
No, unfortunately not, because then I would have, obviously I selected the first one, but I also agree with the last possibility.
Okay, so give me 1 second. I will actually restart the poll with multiple answers. So
okay.
Thank you. I think in the meantime, we can be indeed considering about this because I can already hear some views coming up there.
Well, building a career in academia, well, there are not so many professorships, so I think it's a prerequisite. I mean, you just need to have a PhD to become a professor. There's no discussion about that. But outside of the academic world, I mean, there are so many people that have built great careers without having a PhD, but it helps. It helps for sure.
And there's always exception to the rule there. That one of the professors here actually doesn't have a PhD, but it's very, very rare. Yeah, and it's usually people coming from industry back into academia. But again, that's a very rare move. I would suggest to get one.
Yeah, I think that's a good point of Nynke, that indeed that you can get a lot of movement around, and indeed if in industry some very new innovative aspect has come up where there simply are no experts teaching, then the university might capitulate and accept somebody then in that case perhaps without a PhD, or perhaps they get an honorary PhD. But Nynke believes these are probably more exceptions to the rule. So indeed it's probably maybe an easier path. Certainly, I think a PhD is really a great opportunity to have that scientific freedom and to build up so many skills during a PhD and analytical power. I think this is sometimes a bit underestimated. It's considered maybe a piece of research, but it's actually much, much more than that. It's a whole self-development process, I believe. But perhaps the academics could comment a bit more on the PhD.
Yeah, so what my supervisor once told me, you don't, in terms of research, that's almost like second place. First place is that you're trying to manage in our case, a 4-year project by yourself, and that's very useful for whatever you do later on. It's all about project management and persevering, and I think that's a skill that can be useful anywhere.
Renaud, do you think that it is useful to have a PhD in industry? Do you consider it essential?
So yeah, I don't consider this as essential. One of my first supervisors as a PhD student told me that it might help to open more doors to have one. It will never close anything if you don't have one. So I think that's something that I've kept in my mind. That it might bring more opportunities. It might open more doors within industry, but definitely it's not essential. And yeah, I know colleagues. I've met a lot of people that are doing great careers in industries and companies without PhD. So again, I think what is important is to be able to develop the skills that you develop during a PhD by maybe managing a project, managing a team, getting involved into something different within the industry that will help you to develop the skills that you definitely can develop within when you do a PhD.
So might there be a difference, for example, whether you really want to do, really science, really strong research, or might it also depend on whether, for example, you would like to take your career another direction, for example, into communication of science? Because there's also roles there, both in industry or in government, or
Maybe I could take that. Let's say, I think the communication, obviously, even if you're doing a PhD and you want to go really an academic track, I think communication in general, wherever you are, is important. And it is mapped to the audience you want to reach, obviously, and there is the difference. In my current environment, obviously, our communication is 360 degrees, because you have to communicate to the scientific community. You have to communicate to decision makers, to agencies, but you also have to communicate to policymakers, so science for policy making. So, but similarly in industry, who are your customers, your audience? So, however, again, I don't like, let's say, these kind of, yes and no answers to these type of questions, because it all depends. It depends again, but what you tend to see, moreover, and especially now in the digital world, look at the Twitters, look at the Instagrams, look at the LinkedIns, it's a lot of short, sharp communication, that starts to be important for all the tracks, be it academy, be it industry, or be it regulation. So the landscape is changing because the society is changing. So you have to be adapting, and you have to be resilient. A bit like what has been said, resilience is something you learn definitely in some PhD projects. And that is a very good skill for many, many things in life. Not only professional, but also private.
So essentially, communication is actually extremely important regardless of what career path you choose. So whether you pick up those skills, during a PhD or some other means, you do need to achieve them somewhere, and they become more and more important. We see it also now, for example, for scientists that have to explain to the general public about, for example, COVID and viruses and things, and how critical it is. And on the other hand, in industry, it's also very important to be able to explain why you have to do certain research or not. There was also some interest in relation to publications, actually, from the audience. And a question was, how important is it to publish in scientific journals when you're applying for jobs, for example, in the academia, industry, or in regulatory agencies or public institutions? So again, we're asked, what do we think?
Well, here again, from the academic point of view, this is essential. Of course, every year we are evaluated based on, you know, our publications. So people sometimes talk about publication pressure. Well, this is it basically. So you need to publish. So, I mean, and I think that will be the same in other universities. It's not only publications. Of course, there is also services to external partners, getting in, you know, external grants, these kind of things. But yeah, I think as a scientist, you also want to publish, right? Because you're doing research, you should be motivated about this. So you should be keen on sharing that knowledge and these results with the outside world. So it's your main tool to communicate, basically.
I think that's a very good point from Mathieu. I mean, certainly, I think that also in industry, there is really an aspiration to be more transparent about everything. So I would say that probably industry would be more these days trying to publish everything that they do, because they feel this is the right thing to do, to simply share everything and to have it completely open. How are you further thinking about, you know, do you do consider it essential, for example, on the academic side to be able to still to be able to publish? So your advice to potential persons who are interested in going for an academic career is that they should try to publish then?
Absolutely. And it's usually the part that, you know, at least in my team, that people do not like that much. I mean, they don't like to write. They like to spend time in the lab. The writing part is a bit, you know, it might be boring, it might be a bit challenging. But again, this is a kind of skill that they need to learn. And I think it's also very important is that you, but that's part of the learning curve, so to say, is that you don't write only for academic peers. Especially here again, if you enter in this kind of toxicology field where you're working or you're focusing on NAMs, these kind of things, I mean, your audience is much broader than that. And that's an additional skill. So try to write in a very understandable way that not only the typical academic scientists are able to understand where you're actually writing. But again, I think for people working in industry or in a regulatory agency, it might be different, but in one or the other way, they also have to communicate. So be it in a report or whatever kind of thing. So you need to communicate. That's the main message.
Okay. Renaud, would you like to comment on that in terms of Cargill? Is there really an encouragement to publish or
So even in general, I've lived with a very different experience in terms of publication. Some companies are really open to their employees, their scientists, to communicate and to publish about what they do. So it's really not pushing, I would say, but it's really encouraging people to publish and to communicate and to go to conferences and things like that. And as Mathieu said, sometimes we are even indeed evaluated within industries of the number of publications that we have per year, and seen as well in the past other companies that were, I would say, more trying to keep that level of publication low, and this is changing definitely. I think I've realized that nowadays, if you do not communicate about what you do, about where you fund research, or where you want to go, what you want to do, it's more difficult to attract people, and sometimes other people will communicate instead of you as well. So I think it's really important to do that, and I've seen that in my career, and I've seen this change. But yeah, definitely, it's not a must-have in industry, but it's
okay.
I would say
So it's
more
maybe not in every industry yet, but you can start. Yeah, you can start to expect it. I mean, certainly in the company that I'm in, Sensus, and we really, with our scientific board, our aim is to just publish everything and just sort of be completely transparent, to try to make that effort also for industry, that it will be also trusted by the public. But there's also another interesting aspect coming in about how important it is to have, for example, experiences abroad for one's career in academia, industry, or regulatory agencies. And so kindly a poll has been made of that. So is experience abroad a prerequisite for a career in these different sectors?
If I may start again on this. So from the academic point of view, it is. And this is what I mentioned. I have seen this becoming more and more important over the past few years. Not only in our own evaluation, so in our university, you're really, evaluated on international mobility. But also if you apply for European and other kind of grants, I mean, people really look at this in your CV. It's so not only about your publications, but how visible have you been internationally? So how mobile have you been? And this is not only about going to a conference every now and then, but really research stays abroad and building a very broad international network. So yeah, if you want to build a career in academia, I don't say that it's really indispensable, but it will help you for sure to build international collaboration, recognition, and experience in general.
Yes, I'd second that. At least in academia, it's not, I wouldn't say it's a prerequisite, because I know plenty of people here who haven't actually done a stint abroad, but it really does help when you're applying for places. Also, it helps just to broaden your network. I mean, the further you go, the more people you meet, and that's incredibly important to pursue a career, at least in academia. That's for sure.
I would like also to add something on that, Elaine, because let's say we're talking here obviously about
regarding industry. I fully support what Nynke and Mathieu just said. Super important.
I think this
become more and more important, and yeah, it's really about having.
You can carry on, Renaud.
It's really having different experiences. Okay. It's really having different experiences, and yeah, and building your network. That's super important as well. That's key.
Okay, Sandra, shall we go back to you, because I think there was a delay with Renaud.
Arnaud comes in a bit with a delay, so thanks, Arnaud, for taking this. So I wanted also to go, let's say, to this abroad. I mean, I think definitely it's important, but since we're talking about career, and again there, I would say, whatever we say, there is no wrong and right, whatever you do, but you want to get a skill set, you want to get some competences. So abroad, that gives you a cultural outlook. It learns you to embrace diversity, inclusion in other environments, this helps you. And we talked about the R's, and we talked about the I's, and we talk about the C's. Because when you're going abroad, it is also giving you sometimes more difficult situations, because when you're going abroad, so you get some resilience, you have to carry on. And let's say in whatever we do in all these careers, you want to learn other C's. We talked about communication, but it's also about, critical thinking, not only for science, but in general. And also some courage, I think, when you go abroad, for some people, it's a sea of courage.
Somebody also asked a question about, is there, I think they see some potential risk on the length of the mobility, or the length of the abroad experience versus losing a network. Do you have any comments on that?
On the length of the going abroad?
Yeah, so for example, if one goes abroad for a postdoctoral or some other experience, there seems to be also some concern that they maybe lose a network. Might that be then if you want to return maybe to a specific country or something?
Oh, okay. I maybe also the others can speak about that. I think any experience abroad, of course, in the Erasmus programs, it was kind of ideally 6 months, but for the masters, the PhDs, and so it can be longer. Again, there I would not say there is wrong and right. You cannot lose a network. You just have to, you have to be clever to maintain whatever network you have.
Yeah,
exactly, and it's not. Sorry, go ahead, Nynke.
No, I'm just seconding that. So I don't think there's a maximum length of time, but you have to maintain that network. Because it is true, you know, it's like if you've been out for a long time, coming back in is harder. But if you've maintained the network, it shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, and it should, you know, one network should not replace another one. It's like it's and story. It's not or. So it's up to you to really maintain it. Indeed, it's not because you move for 2 years abroad to another country and another lab that you should really lose your network back home. I mean, no, but it's up to you to do this, and that's part of the challenge, of course.
Thank you for those comments. I think there was one one closing poll, and then we have to be just very quick. Okay, here we go. This one came up, I think, because in relation to perhaps to COVID and the whole changes around this and minding children at home. How important is the work-personal life balance when selecting of career path and a job? Okay, so mostly I would say there to the panelists, it looks like very important is coming out there. So regardless of all the different direction these panelists have gone and the audience have gone, it seems to be it's very important to maintain a good work and personal life balance.
I'm the person actually who was somehow not important, and it might not be a surprise. I mean, but this is really a personal opinion. I mean, because of a number of reasons, I really decided also to really focus my life on my career. And well, you can say that this is stupid or not, but it is what it is. But I can easily imagine that people would really prefer to have like a family and you know, like a private life, which for me is not existing. But yeah, that's up to you to decide on how you want to do this in life.
Yeah, so Mathieu, I'm the one important but a not essential person. But I think this is also maybe because we're in academia. It is challenging occasionally. I can tell you that. But yeah. I also love what I do, so something's got to give on that.
It could be that maybe it's just different phases. So at the time, you know, it's very important to have certain proposals written up, or to have a certain piece of work with the deadline. And you know, usually I think the family will love you so much they will sort of forgive you, and then you will have to just make it up perhaps at another moment. And I think this is perhaps the way it is in industry. It is very important to us, and of course we have to work around that. Yeah, in trying to achieve our work, but also maintaining a very good and rewarding family life. So I think the good news is that there's obviously a balance there. That most academics, industry, and I think regulatory people are managing to achieve. So I think the important message is you can have a really enjoyable and rewarding life as a scientist, also with family. I know at least some of the panel members also have children, for example, even. So clearly it's possible with some maybe good preparation and maybe not always being too perfect.
Exactly. I have 3 girls. So one is 25, the other one is 23, the other one is 15. I've been traveling around the world, but I am the one that put in life-work balance is important. But again, there, it's a personal choice. And it's, again, it's challenging, like Nynke says. But it's possible. You do some multitasking, you have some good agreements, you involve them in the why you're doing something. And it's not the quantity of time always, it's the quality of time if you're with your partner or with your family or with your friends. So, you know, life is many things. Profession is one of them, but there is many, many other things. So it's a challenge, but we go for it.
Now, thank you very much. I really thank all the panel members for giving tips and advices and their thoughts today and just sharing their own career paths to inspire others to also be very successful. You can be very successful and a happy person as a scientist. And we really encourage you. We need good scientists in the world today, especially with the big challenges that we are facing, environment, food, etc. I thank also all the audience for attending and also for your questions today. And I would say now really that we're going to close this session. So please return to the lobby. There is an official lunch break now, so please don't forget to get lunch before your next session. And I thank you all very much and wish you an excellent afternoon further at this ILSI Symposium. So thank you again. Bye-bye.